do is you have a cell phone or mobile device. We ask you to please put on vibrate or silence. Officiating today is Rabbi Nuriel, Klinger, Associate Rabbi, Young Israel, Scarsdale.
Please be seated.
Our hearts are torn. And we are all in collective pain as we are here today to pay tribute, Avodat Harom, to the life and legacy of David Douek, David Dov, Ben Yamin Yaakov HaKohen, Zichrono Livracha. His life was cut short far too early. We today honor the impact he has made on all of us in this room and on countless others who are not in this room, who maybe didn't even know the impact he made on their life. I want to this time acknowledge David's immediate family that will carry on his legacy. His wife Jessica, his daughter Leora, his parents Bunny and BJ, and David's brother Daniel, along with his wife Megan. And we acknowledge all the extended family and friends who are grieving as well. This time we will recite 2 chapters of Tehillim from the book of Psalms, chapter 15 and chapter 23. Mizmor LeDavid. Adonai mi agur be'ohalecha, mi yishkon b'har kodshecha. Holech tamim u'foel tzedek v'dober emet b'levavo. Lo ragal al lishono, lo asa l're'ehu ra'ah, v'cherpa lo nasa al kirbo. Nivzeh be'einav nimas ve'et yir'eh Adonai yichabed. Nishva lehara v'lo yamir. Kaspo lo natan b'neshech, v'shochar al maki lo lakach. Oseh eile lo yimot le'olam. The Song of David. Lord, who may sojourn in your tent, who may dwell on your holy mountain? One who walks in purity, does what is righteous, and speaks truth from the heart. He who has no slander on the tongue, nor has done harm to a fellow, nor casts disgrace toward a neighbor, in whose eyes a contemptible person is repulsive, but who honors those who are in awe of the Lord, who swears truthfully, even to a personal hurt, and never retracts, who does not lend money on interest, nor take a bribe against the innocent. One who does these things shall never falter. Mizmor LeDavid, Adonai ro'i lo echsar, binot Darche yarbitzeni, al menuchot yinahaleni. Nafshi shovev, yancheni b'maglei tzedek l'man shemo. Gam ki elech begeit salmavet, lo irara, ki ata imati. Shiftecha ul mishantecha, hema yinachamuni. Taroch lefanai shulchan, neged tzorai. Dishanta Hashem en roshi kosi rivaya. Ach tov b'chesed yudafuni kol yemei chayai. V'shavti b'veit Adonai le'orech yomim. A Song of David. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not lack. God causes me to lie down in lush pastures. God leads me beside tranquil waters. God restores my soul and guides me in righteous paths for God's name's sake. Though I walk through the valleys of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your scepter and staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in full view of my adversaries. You have anointed my head with oil. My cup overflows. May only goodness and kindness pursue me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord for length of days. Being that today is a holiday, it's Pesach, it's Passover, we do not offer divrei hesped, words of eulogy, but rather we offer words of praise and reflect on the many wonderful qualities that David possessed. We will hear words of tribute to David from his brother Daniel, from his friends Hillel Maresky, Ashok Chandra, Weigand, from his friends and colleagues Darche, Matt Kadushin, David's wife Jessica, and David's father BJ. Daniel.
No one told me I was going first. Speaking of words, as children, Dean and I weren't super close. Partially it's because we were 4 years apart, so we were in school together, we had a lot of the same friends. But for me, it was like there's any more than that. no, screaming. Okay, when I was a kid, my older brother wasn't so much a person even to me. He was like a mythic figure, something out of a story. He knew everything, he was so good at everything. I told this story the other day. We went to the same camp when we were growing up. I started going when I was 6. And I knew that he was really into kayaking there. He'd done a lot of it. And so I was like, oh, I want to try kayaking. And they showed this video of kayaking to get us excited. And they were like, oh, only the best kayakers in the world can do this. And some kid was like, oh, we can, they were like, some kid was like, oh, we can do stuff like that. And they were like, only the best kayakers in the world do this. And I remember I was like, oh, like, can my brother do it? Like, obviously. And they kind of laughed at me. And I was like, I remember being offended. They were implying that he couldn't do it. Because like, he could definitely do it. But more even than that, like this sign, I didn't know that it was going to be here, but the thing about my brother is that he was so like unrestrained. He was so extreme in everything he did. He was so always like true to who he was. And I remember always being scared about that. I thought it was so cool that he could do that, but it always frightened me. And I'm sure that for a lot of you here, that's what connected you to him, whether it was motorcycles or probably motorcycles, but whatever, if you were into something he was into, you were going to hear about it, you were going to talk about it a lot, and you knew everything about it, and it just was part of who he was. But yeah, it always scared me. So, I have a rough segue in my speech here. The first time I thought that my brother had died actually was Passover in the year 2000. We took a family trip to Sardinia for Passover. My brother was in Israel for a year, so we were going to meet him in Milan and then fly from Milan to Sardinia as a family. And we got to the airport in Milan and we couldn't find him. And we looked all over. There was one place we didn't look, which was Arrivals, which is where my mom told him to meet us. It didn't tell us that we were meeting him. And so he was there, he was fine, but for all I knew, he was dead. And then we got on the flight to Sardinia without him. We took a car to the hotel, and I was inconsolable, I think. I was crying the whole way. We get there, and they're like, oh, we heard from your son David. He called some people he knew. He got into a Passover program in Milan. And then he came like 3 days later, and it's like, yeah, I was in a suite in a hotel in Milan. Like, I had a chandelier in my room. And it's just like, he always did that. Like, he always knew something, and it just became more of this myth. Like, you can do anything. The second time I thought my brother had died was Passover only a year later, or a couple of years later. No, not Passover, specifically he had a brain tumor, which I'm sure many of you know. He was in the hospital for a really long time, and he had brain surgery. And after his surgery, he was recovering in the hospital. He had a Passover Seder with another family, and that became a story, just another piece of Douek lore, this very intense Passover that he had. And there's obviously something about Passover, unfortunately. We should probably watch out for that. But after that, he always had these pills that he had to take, and he kept them in that little round tin that always wore into his jeans. And so even this crazy thing that happened to him, he just wore it into himself, into part of who he was. It was that gift that he had. It wasn't until I was much older that we connected as people. I don't know exactly what it was. We had a lot of shared interests. I looked at some of my emails. I did try to get into the genes for a bit. But we talked a lot about music and movies, coffee, motorcycles, one-sided. Then Jessica came to his life, and something about it, it brought us closer together, and we talked about it a lot. The person he was dating and having a kid with and marrying and in that order. And then the kid, Leora, was stepped out, I think. We didn't even have to talk about it. You could just see it all the time. And we talked about work stuff a lot, both of us. He was always working on something new. Coffee shops sort of thing that he and I talked about, and Jessica shared with me. A document he was working on about a coffee place he wanted to open. I'm just going to read the description. If I can, let's see. Okay. The Pit Stop is a small, cozy coffee shop that is located in a converted garage. The walls are painted a dark red, and the floor is covered in black and white checkered tile. There are a few tables and chairs scattered around the room, and there is also a long counter with a few stools. The counter is made of dark wood, and it is topped with a gleaming espresso machine. The walls of the Pit Stop are decorated with motorcycle parts and memorabilia. There are old gas tanks and carburetors and exhaust pipes hanging on the walls. There are also a few framed photos of classic motorcycles. The atmosphere of the Pit Stop is relaxed and friendly, and the staff is always happy to chat about motorcycles. After 2 close calls, it's hard to believe that this is the real one. But wherever he is now, I hope it lives up to the Pit Stop.
Second. Dear friends, we gather here today to pay respects to David Douek, cherished member of our community, who left us all too soon at the young age of 41. David was a remarkable person, full of life and energy, and his loss is deeply felt by all who knew. David, Dave, DBD, known by most as Douek, was a true force of nature. The extravagant tapestry of diverse human beings here today, or Team DBD, as I heard it called earlier, and the eclectic group of speakers honoring our holy brother, are a testament to the extraordinary reach Douek had across vast multitudes of cultures. As I look around at Team DBD, it spans swaths of countries and tongues, social barriers, or to ordinary folk like myself, such as language or socioeconomic class or glass ceiling for Douek to break through, which he did easily. As we reflect on Douek's life, we are reminded of the wisdom and the beauty contained within King Solomon's Song of Songs, Shir Shirim, the scroll which millions of Jews around the world read this week on Passover. King Solomon sings of the beauty and the power of love. He reminds us that love is a force that cannot be quenched, even in the face of death. David embodied the spirit of love in his life. He was a man who loved deeply his family, his friends, and his community. He was always there to lend a helping hand or a listening ear, and he approached every challenge with a sense of purpose and determination. Melech Shlomo, Solomon, was a king who sages say was wiser than any man. He was a man who understood the power of love, and he used his wisdom to build a society that was guided by justice and compassion. Douek, too, was a man of great wisdom. Easily the smartest person I've ever met. Walking around with Douek was like having a two-legged encyclopedia with a sense of humor by your side at all times. And Douek understood the importance of living a life that was guided by love and the principles of justice and compassion. He was a man who made a difference in the lives of those around him, and his legacy will live on in the hearts of those who knew him. But Melech Shlomo, King Solomon, was not only a wise king, he was also a skilled diplomat, known for bringing seamlessly disparate nations together, even by marrying women from different cultures, which he was actually criticized for in the Talmud by doing so. As it says in Malachim Aleph, in Kings 3:1, and Solomon became allied to Pharaoh, king of Egypt, by marriage, and took Pharaoh's daughter and brought her into the city of David, until he had made an end of building his own house and the house of the Lord and the wall of Jerusalem round about. The fact that Pharaoh's daughter had been singled out in the accounts of Solomon is significant, as similar treatment is not given to the, quote, 700 wives, princesses, and 300 concubines, as it says in Malachim Aleph. How ironic that last week we sat around the Seder table celebrating the Exodus from Egypt, and now we read about how Solomon marries Pharaoh's daughter some centuries after the Jews left Egypt as slaves. Again, a mere glass ceiling for King Solomon to break through, which we learn that his alliance through his marriage is seen as scholars as the foot in the door that the Israelites desperately needed to gain access to economic trade with Egypt. Like King Solomon, Douek's boundless ability to form and bond alliances across seemingly impossible divides is something I have not seen in my lifetime. Who knows? Who knew what his intricate strokes of motive were? Only for Tikkun Olam. But one could only guess. You know, when I was a teenager, I used to boast to my simpleton Canadian friends that I have a friend in New York who is going to one day be President of the United States of America. No joke, you'll see. I would say so as a matter of fact and pride, without even a shred of doubt in my mind. You know, in philosophy, we learn of a philosopher called Plato, or in Greek, the Wide, who was famous not only for his physically broad shoulders, like a plate, which is why he's called Plato, but more so for his metaphorically wide shoulders on which diametrically opposed philosophers could perch. Plato, whose original name was Aristocles, son of Ariston, was so broad in his wisdom that those adherent to his philosophy, the disciples of him, they loved him. And they loved his other disciples. They loved students of Plato to such a degree that a new type of love was born. Hence the term Platonic love, which today is defined as, quote, pure, spiritual affection, unmixed with desires. So too, as I look out across the sea of faces of this teen DVD, I feel a sense of spiritual affection, an automatic kinship for anyone who calls themselves a friend of David B. Douek. Like King Solomon, Douek had a gift for building bridges between people. He was a man who was loved and respected by everyone who knew him. He was the embodiment of kindness and generosity, a shining example of how to live life filled with compassion and love. Douek's passing is a great loss to us all. But as we remember him today, we take comfort in knowing that he is now at peace, reunited with loved ones who have gone before him. I'm sure he is smiling in heaven, looking down on us right at this very moment, saying, "Hey, what a great party! Have an excellent time. Hey, Hilly, have you met, Ashok? Have you met Jason?" And so, we all take comfort in the fact that his life was a reflection in the wisdom of King Solomon, a man who, like David Douek, was renowned for his wisdom and his love. David's life was a testament to the fact that love and wisdom go hand in hand. He understood that to truly love someone, you must also be wise enough to know how to help them and how to guide them. On a personal level, I'm deeply pained that I've lost one of my best guides in this perplexing and often confusing thing we call life. Walking through life with DVD, or more accurately, as he often frolicked and danced and pranced through life, made the burden of life not just more bearable, but most entertaining and meaningful. I feel like I must have won the spiritual lottery to have been such close friends with this mythical creature, as he said, this legend. He taught me more than I could even begin to express. We laughed together, we cried together, we grew together. Douek was the first person I would call when experiencing one of life's many crises. He was the first person I instinctively reached out to WhatsApp when I heard about this terrible accident on Friday, April 7th. Notoriously, the call would go straight to voicemail and I'd get a text. Beep beep, can I call you later? /DVD. And then without fail, he would call back in a matter of minutes. Hilly, relax. He would say in a strong and confident, yet non-judgmental tone. Before delving into this issue, which we'll of course delve into this issue, whichever issue it was, we'll have to delve, and take the stock of what has transpired. He had this way of analyzing the situation with such ease that it made the mountain in my mind seem like a molehill. Every time. He would often recite and sing into the phone from his office, by the way, in falsetto, these lines from the band Fish, who we loved. Please indulge me to read these few lines. Dripping in this strange design, none is yours, and far less mine. Hold the wheel, read the sign. Keep the tires off of the line. Just relax. You're doing fine. Swimming in this real thing I call life. Can I bring a few companions on this ride? Douek was always about bringing a few companions on the ride. It was his raison d'etre. The companions, the ride. It was for him as vital and as necessary as the air we breathe. He was a man who made a difference in the lives around him, and his legacy will live on in the hearts of those who knew him. As we mourn David's passing, let us also remember the words of King Solomon in Song of Songs, Shir HaShirim. Love is strong as death, passion fierce as the grave. Its flashes are flashes of fire, a raging flame. Many waters cannot quench love, neither can floods drown it. Mayim rabim le'ochlu lechabot et ha'ahava. David's love and his legacy will continue to inspire us for many years to come. In the Song of Songs, King Solomon sings of the beauty of the power of love. He reminds us that love is a force that we cannot be extinguished even in the face of death. Who more appropriate than King Solomon, the wisest of wise, to remind us at this time and on this occasion that life is a precious gift and that we should cherish every moment we have with those who we love. As we say goodbye to our dear friend, David B. Douek, let us remember his life as a reflection of the wisdom and the love and the diplomacy of King Solomon. Let us take comfort in the fact that his spirit will live on in the hearts of those who knew him, and that his legacy will inspire us for many years to come. In closing, my friends, Team DBD, I'd like to offer a prayer in honor of David's memory. May his soul rest in peace, and may his family find comfort in the knowledge that he was loved and respected by so many. May his love and legacy continue to inspire us for many years to come. Rest in peace, dear David. Zichro Tzadik Livracha. You will be deeply missed. May his memory be a blessing for all.
Ashok. Hi, all. So last night I'm sitting at the restaurant where Dave and I go 2 or 3 times a week. I'm writing down some notes. What would I say? I would think, what would David want me to say? He would tell me to tear that paper up, throw it over my shoulder, and just be impulsive. David was a man of passion and impulse. It was wonderful. I met David about 15 years ago. We lived in Midtown East, at a place called Stag's Head. It was our local watering hole. It's no surprise, but local watering holes. It was interesting. Like he was sitting there, and I was sitting across the bar from him. Like every day we'd see each other a couple times. He seemed to get to know everyone more and more, and I was like, this guy is really interesting. So I sat to talk with him. He was a wealth of knowledge. Any topic you talked to him about, he had leagues of knowledge in it, and he was always willing to help everyone, whether it's regardless of socioeconomic classes may have mentioned, or race, or anything. Like I was running for office in 2009, and he decided to look into how to build a 501c3. I was like, wow, that's awesome. Just off of his heart, we used to go on vacations together with his lovely wife and child, and he will be missed. But as I mentioned, we'd eat together 3 or 4 times a week downtown. We live downtown, and since the past 4 years, I get a text. It was 11 o'clock, 1 o'clock. He'd write. I'd see a little green icon on my phone that said, "What good?" And then that means I'm hungry. So we'd be like, "Where do we go? Want a burger today, or do you want a pizza?" So either way, we had the same place, either Irish American or Baptist, and we had the same people serving us. And everybody's like, "Hey, it's David." They were all welcoming him with open arms. There'd be a Coors Light for me and another light right next for him, just sitting waiting for us. And it was wonderful to bring everyone in. But during the lockdown, David was delivering food to people, and he spent a lot of his time doing that. And afterwards, my response to David for what good is what do. And so he'd come and we'd go eat food, and we'd meet people who were just still suffering from the lockdown, and he would bring them in with his heart and open it up. And we made a small group of people there, and that was fantastic. As I mentioned, he was a man of passion and impulse, and I'm very much sticking with that, very conservative and reason. So it was wonderful to learn from him, just to see what you could do with passion in your life. And that's how he lived his life, and I'm very glad to have known him.
and he will be missed in heaven. Looks good, David.
I met David in the fall of 2006. Couldn't get his car to start in our parking lot at Wake Forest, and I had to drive him to class. After that, we spent almost every Friday and Saturday spending time together, classmates, football games. And then, as luck would have it, Wake Forest played in the ACC championship. As luck wouldn't have it, it was right during final exams. So David and I decided we were going to drive down to Jacksonville, Florida together. Well, I drove. He studied on the way and on the way back because he had an exam the very next day after the game. Of course, we happened to be on the front row, and the camera loved us. So the day we get back, he walks into his exam, and his professor says, "I know where you were." So that was the beginning. And then from there, we went to the Orange Bowl together, and we were on the front row again, and we're celebrating before the game starts. And I turn one way, turn back, David's gone. And I look over the railing, and there he is. So he pops up, he's like, "I'm okay." And he runs inside, and he comes out, and he says, "Like, how did it go?" He goes, "Well, they told me it was not an emergency room, it was a first aid station, and I told them that I had to get back for kickoff." So he made it just in time. Large bandage, just fine. That was the kind of guy David was. He was super genuine, always there for you, and always wanted to be a part of what was going on. And as the years went by, I moved to Atlanta, and he and I would see each other either for Wake Forest games, or he would come down to Atlanta and we'd spend time together there. And then I moved to Chicago, and always, even after he moved to New York, even in Mount Haven or wherever he was, he always made time to come see me. And I always made time to go see him. And we made sure we never lost our bond. There's a lot of people in this world, and they come and go, but David and I were always together. And he even came to Chicago, for sporting events. I would come here for sporting events, and we go to see the White Sox. And a friend of mine was singing, so we were on the field, and REO Speedwagon is standing right there. And sure enough, Dave goes right up to them and starts talking to them about music and touring, and just made fast friends with, 4 or 5 of the more famous people in the stadium. And they acted like they'd known him forever. He was that kind of guy. They could tell he was a genuine, real person. And it continued up until the Mets game. And it's just amazing to me how David could connect so many people together. And whether it was coming to New Orleans with me, or me coming here to see him, we'd go to Mets games, we'd go to Yankees games, always seemed like we hadn't been apart for even a day. He was that kind of guy. And he meant what he said, and he was always there for you. And there aren't very many people like that in this world. And it's very sad that there's one few.
John?
I want to thank Mr. Douek for asking me to speak today. I'm happy to represent the CCRB where David worked and gave so much to us. David was one of the hardest workers I've ever known. He gave himself entirely to do whatever needed to be done. He knew he could do things that no one else at the agency could do, whether it was on the budgeting side or as an editor. But that did not stop him from being willing to do anything, From cleaning up after a board meeting, or figuring out how to record video calls, whatever there was that needed to get done, David was willing to do it. Sometimes his willingness to do anything could leave him out over his skis, but I never mind. Okay, sometimes I might. But I never regretted having to help him get out of a situation because I knew David was in that situation because he was willing to step up when no one else would or no one else could. David had an ability to make friends with people who, on paper, should not have been his friend. Sergeant Frank Galasso, who couldn't be with us today. And it's so sad that he could not be with us here today, became one of David's good friends. Even though on paper, they have very little in common. Dennis Smoot from the Office of Management and Budget could be found having an occasional beer with David after work. To those of you who don't know city government, the idea of a budget director and an OMB analyst sitting down to have a beer together is kind of like Tom and Jerry going and sharing. There is one thing that I could tell you about David, is that he loved nothing more than Jessica and Lee. He and I would often start and end our meetings by talking about our families. He could talk about Leora forever. It was important that we made sure to discuss business before we discussed family, because otherwise we wouldn't discuss work. The time allotted for a meeting could quickly get sucked up by talking about our families. Leora never doubted your father loved you and your mother more than anything. And he will be watching you, all the amazing things you do in the years to come. Jessica, you and Nuriel will always be part of the CCRB family. We are here for you. Really, David was always here for us.
Matt?
Good morning. This is tough to kind of come up here and figure out what you can say that's good enough for David, that embodies him. I guess when I'm thinking about it, I thought of the first time that I met David. And I was working, doing a startup company with my friend from law school. And we brought David in to interview us, and he had spent some time looking at the books. And for those, I know there's some motorcycle folks in here, but for those people who've seen David in a suit, everybody knows David is a very well-dressed man. A handkerchief to match his tie, and David embodied, the businessman coming into a meeting. And David, we spent several hours with David, and David just proceeded to tell us we were wrong, and we were idiots, and we didn't know anything. The company's a disaster, and this is going to be a wreck. Why didn't you look at this? Why didn't you look at that? And anyone who's been in a meeting with David, David is not shy. David doesn't mince his words. And after spending a couple hours with him, I'm looking over at my friend from law school, and I'm like, this guy hates us. Like, this is bad. And I was like, what a jerk, I don't want to work with this guy. And my friend from law school proceeds to tell me, say, no, this is who you want with you. This is who you want on your team. You want the person who's going to tell you what you don't want to hear. You want the person who has the conviction to stand up for what he believes. And let it be clear, I know a lot of people said that David was the smartest person in the room. You know, a lot of people think they're the smartest person in the room, but David was the smartest person in the room. And David knew everything. And after proceeding to be berated by him for a couple hours, you know, we decided to work together. And David and I became fast and good friends. And we'd spend lunch together, and we'd go out to the park, and we'd talk. And David would yell at me about something or another during the day. And then I left, as David predicted, things didn't work out the way we wanted. But I came about a year and a half later to CCRB, and I was working with John, and we needed somebody to help us to work out our budget. And I could think of no better person to bring onto the team than David. And David came to CCRB, and he did an audit 2 years back, 2 years forward. He figured out how to work the city budget codes. FMS having never ever worked for the city government, and within a week David knew it better than anybody. And David represented the person you wanted on your team. He was the person you wanted to work with. He was the person that you wanted to be around. And whether that was because you wanted to be in the same, I didn't ride a motorcycle, I've never been on one, but I'm sure if I was in a motorcycle club, that's who I would want, you know, I would want David. Whether you're doing a friend or whatever it is, David is the person that you want on your side whenever you have something complicated to deal with. Because you know that you have the smartest person in the room, the person who will do anything and everything that needs to get done, the person who will dot his I's and cross his T's and do everything to perfection, and then proceed to berate you as how you can't keep up with him. And that's what David was. You know, he was a perfectionist, and he was witty, he was smart, he knew everything. There wasn't a topic, I've heard it before, but there wasn't a topic that got brought up that David didn't know more about than you. No matter what you wanted to talk about, David knew more. And he let you know it too, by the way. And, you know, and he let you know in the loving way that he was. And I guess it's just sad. It's very sad that he's not going to be on the team going forward. That he's going to be watching us, and we all learned a lot from him. And we got to remember how David would yell at us when we were thinking about doing something, having his voice in the back of your head. And that's what I was trying to do. I'm going to miss him, and I love him.
Just to exemplify the reach that David had, we literally just off the plane from Israel, I'd like to invite Rabbi Daniel Vinik to share some words of tribute about his friend.
David here. I know you're wondering what I'm doing here. Because it's Pesach. You all might be aware that, you might be aware now, but be aware that David was an extremely knowledgeable person in all realms. And certainly in his own tradition where he came from. So he knows very well that according to Jewish law, right, when it comes to the time of Passover, Passover is a time of celebration. So David here is wondering, he said, Vinik, what are you doing here, man? It's Passover, it's Pesach. How can you get up here and give a hesped? So there are two answers. There's a allowance in the law to give a eulogy on this happy period of time in the Jewish calendar. And the allowance is if the person who you're actually eulogizing is someone who you have something to learn from, then you're allowed to eulogize. Then it's the opposite. Then you must eulogize that person. Because you have to learn from who they were in order to continue on in your own life. But I think when it comes to Passover, you have to take it to another level. It's not enough just to be able to learn from someone, when a person you're eulogizing. You have to be able to celebrate that which you're learning from them. It has to bring you to know, it has to bring you to that cognition of celebration. So how do you get to celebration? How do you get to celebration in the context of this? How is it possible? Is it possible to get to celebration in the context of this? But I honestly think that when it comes to David, David reached a certain level of perfection. A certain level of perfection that is not only something to learn from, but that is necessary for us and is one of the things most worth celebrating, I think, in this world. What do I mean? David, as you've all been hearing, as many of you know, comes from a home of excellence, of personal excellence, intellectual excellence, religious tradition excellence, and the merging of these worlds in a time in history when many of these issues are extremely difficult to accomplish even in one arena. And here you had a home and a young man growing up and growing into this excellence, right? Everything that he was touched, everything that he looked into what made it beautiful, what made it true, what made it real true when you were alone and nobody was watching you. And how do you become an authentic person? When you do something for its own sake. What we call in Torah, do something lishma, for what it's worth intrinsically. And David grew up in that world. And David was blessed with the talents to perceive excellence. To perceive excellence wherever he looked. And wherever he looked, and he saw it, he took it on. He became it. Again, not out of a desire to be seen, but to express the beauty through himself. You know, we talk about, we talk about David not being, averse to sharing his opinion. I don't know if I've ever met a more modest, shy person. You know, I studied in yeshiva. I was David's roommate when he studied for a year in Israel, and we've kept up throughout all the different stages of life. Unfortunately, the last few years being in Israel, I haven't been in the States, and David hasn't been in Israel. But at the end of the day, when David would come back from studying or whatever he was doing, there was always this shyness, there was always this modesty about him. He never lorded it, at least not in my company. It was always about sharing in the good, sharing in the beauty, and sharing in the excellence. But that doesn't bring us to perfection, because the question is, where did David take this excellence? And what did he do with his excellence? And what was he interested in cultivating in his excellence? Did he want to become the Lord of the earth? Did he want to rule over other people? When he came to those business meetings, was he interested in making it his own, or was he actually interested in making it the best it could be? He was not interested in lording it, and actually the exact opposite. The only thing David couldn't stand, in my experience with him, was the conceit of this presumption of condescension. For David, Everyone was an equal. It had to be on equal terms. Everyone he was looking at through his own prism and saw in everyone the beauty and the excellence that was in everyone. When David came into the room and said, Vinik, what's good? That's what he was looking for always, the good. And most importantly, what he made his life about was seeing the good in others, in everyone, in each and every single person, and knowing that it was there. But that's still not enough. It's not enough to perceive excellence. It's not enough to search for the good. But David was a warrior. David fought tooth and nail for that good. He did not allow you to underestimate yourself. If you had good inside of you and you didn't honor your own good, David got on your case and did everything in his power to elicit it from you. And this quality, this ability, this non-compromising drive, this force, this will to the good of every single person, of giving everything up so as not to prejudge any human being that he encountered. And the only thing that he couldn't stand was if you would do that yourself. There was only one time in my entire life, in all my interactions with David, that he ever actually got on my case, that he ever came after me. And that was when I was teaching in Oakland. I was a teacher in the school. And I kind of was getting frustrated with my students. And I, lashed at them a little bit. David was on me. Well, I'm not going to send my kids to your school. The one time in my entire life, we had a lot of interactions together. I was privileged to be in David's home, in many different contexts with David. One time in life did he knock into me. And you knew he could knock into you. I had a dream many years ago, say 10 years ago or so. A few times I had special visitation in my dreams from heaven. Where heaven was indicating to me how pleased they are with David, with how important a person he is, and how much attention he deserves. David could have chosen to do anything in his life, but the one thing he chose to be, the one thing that he fought tooth and nail and he led us to be, was to be a friend to us, to each and every one of us, and to never give up on any human being. And that's why I'm here, and that's why this truly is a celebration. Because David lived life to the fullest, not just to live life to the fullest, not just because we're here and what better things we have to do, but because he saw the good and he was willing to fight tooth and nail for it and not give up that passion for any person. And that was his principle. That life. That is what we need today. That is what, in a time when we're being forced apart, when we're being forced to doubt ourselves, to doubt where we're coming from, we have to always know that David is standing by our shoulder and saying, that's not the truth. That's not the way. What is good? And not just what is good, but what is worth fighting, what is truly worth fighting for, and fighting in the right way for the good, honoring the good, seeing the good, searching it for ourselves, and knowing that he is never going away. That is it. He is cemented in the fabric of existence. Because when you give up your moser nefesh, you give up your entire life to see the good of God's creation and God's creatures in every single one of us, you will be there to the end of time. Because that good is always waiting to be further revealed and further cultivated and further appreciated. And every time we try to do that, we are connecting to David and bringing him back. So I want to thank you, David, for being that friend for me, being that person in times when I truly did doubt myself and truly was unsure. You were standing right there next to me, looking at me and holding me up and pointing out to discover myself. I love you, David, and may we continue on this great journey together.
Hello. This is the first time in my life, literally the first time in my life, that I've ever wanted to talk to this many people at one time. My introverted self is not like this. David did his part, the front man part. But I needed to see a room full of people to remember how big his love was, is, and then if we work together, we can still feel it. The motorcycle riding was a hard part of being married to this man. Did he have a death wish? No. I don't even think he felt like he was invincible. Maybe a little bit. He was too cool for school. Way too cool for school. And we talked about this possibility more than once of him dying for this passion. He needed his motorcycle. His freedom, adrenaline, joy, connection, community, and friendship. And just his flat-out mental health. No. It wasn't that he thought he was invincible. He was truly not afraid of dying. He was not afraid of his own death. Though, side note, I think he was terrified of my death. He was utterly useless in the delivery room of New York. I met him later than Daniel, but from what Daniel said, it sounds like somebody that adrenaline love and fearlessness predated what I always thought was a trait from facing mortality early in life. But maybe it started earlier from the beginning. But either way, he lived fully. He knew who he was. He knew what mattered to him. He loved deeply and passionately and openly. He lived generously, liberal with his time, with his knowledge, with his friendship. And he lived by his own goddamn rules and his own values. But he also respected the right of every single other person to do exactly that same thing. To be themselves and to make their own decisions and live by their own rules. He was so confident and lived completely without shame. He would call me and tell me that he loved me every single day if we were separated more than an hour or two. I know he did it for most of you too. Like, I bet you counted or you could guarantee that he would reach out to you on your birthday. If you knew him well enough for him to know your birthday, you gotta he would tell you happy birthday. He would connect with you. It was a sincere and unconditional, a constant and loyal love as anything I've ever felt. And I'm doing my best to channel that energy into the work and make sure that But don't forget me either. Don't forget my little girl or the baby. Please stand by me, not just today, but in a week, in a month, in a year. Because I think my heart is always going to be broken, and I'm going to need you to help me. So turn up your music, light a J, and call me and tell me that you love me.
Bunny and I thank each of you in David's diverse communities in being here. A feeling you absolutely had to be here. And in making this holy convocation happen. Our boy David was an extraordinary man, an extraordinary human being. He looked at things differently than most of us. He saw the opportunity in every day and the potential in the connection with every person he touched and in the connections that touched him. He was a doer. He saw that progress never rolls in on the wheels of inevitability. It comes from the tireless effort of forming bridges, working hand in hand, encouraging, sometimes leading, sometimes being led, but always, always present on the deck. We are an expressive family, but not an effusive one. We express via the shoulder tap, the kiss on both cheeks from our continental heritage, but mostly with the hug. David was the best hugger. His hugs were made with intensity, and you felt them heart to heart. He hugged you even when he didn't hug you. Yet our verbal communication doesn't follow suit with the nonverbal. So you can imagine my surprise. 7 weeks ago, David and I talked. Jessica. And he talked about his profound love for you. He talked about how special it was to be your husband. Leora, at the awe of witnessing your powers to focus on complex situations with an intelligence and a congregation that were well beyond your years. But Leora, his greatest joy and the swelling of his heart came from listening to your laugh. And to us, the legion of the heartbroken, I admonish us to persevere through the darkness as well as the light. And permit me, in the spirit of my son's ethos, to quote Robert Frost, "The woods are earthy, dark and deep, but I have promises to keep, and miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep." David, I love you, but I always thought that I'd see you, baby, one more time again.
We are in the midst of a holiday of Pesach, Passover, which recounts the story of God bringing forth the Jewish people from Egyptian servitude to be Am Yisrael, the nation of Israel. And on the last night, before the Jewish people left Egypt, while the 10th and final plague befell Egypt in the middle of the night, the Jewish people were in their homes, fulfilling a command that God gave them. It is so fitting that as their servitude and their suffering at the hand of the Egyptian oppressors was coming to an end, that God commanded them in the mitzvah of eating the Korban Pesach, the Pesach sacrifice, a paschal lamb. God instructed the Jewish people, oddly, "V'lo totiu mimenu ad boker." You shall let nothing of it remain until the morning. The entire lamb, the meat, should be eaten. Which is why if someone had a small family and they couldn't finish it all by themselves, v'lakachu ushcheno hakarov el beito, you would get together with neighbors and you would do this commandment together. This commandment required that each person partake of the lamb in the context of family and community. One couldn't fulfill their commandment alone. Families gathered together. Neighbors who perhaps didn't have family were invited over. One wonders why God would make these requirements on the eve of the birth of a new nation. I believe that this was God subtly, or maybe not so subtly, giving us the key to successful nation building. But we must always live our lives in a way that seeks to build connections with others, build camaraderie. And we must live a life devoting ourselves to family, community. The Torah teaches us through this commandment the value of connecting ourselves to others so that we can be there for them to help, to support, and to be present in their lives. Now, I didn't really know David. But I sat with the family the other night, and I just sat here and listened to a number of people get up here and deliver beautiful words of tribute. And this is the story of David. This is his story. This is what stood out to me about his life. He needed to be around other people. He connected himself to others in a way that, for me, is truly inspiring. Mind-blowing. He touched so many lives. He impacted people in real ways because, as was said the other night, I think Jessica, you said this, he was unafraid to connect with others. Unafraid to connect with others. I want to highlight just a few of the numerous examples of how he was unafraid to connect with others. New York City takes a census of homeless people every so often in order to ensure that they're allocating the correct amount of resources to service those who don't have a roof over their head. Yes, David would be the one to, metaphorically, raise his hand and say, I'm going to step up. Go out on the streets in the middle of the night in dangerous parts of New York City. Yes, there was a cop car that would follow, but the cops were in the car and David was out of the car. And he would help take the census. Even with a police car, I wonder how many of us would shy away from this. But David cared for those that were less fortunate. He wanted them to have the appropriate resources devoted to their well-being. Those are people who probably didn't know David's name, but he made an impact on their lives because he wanted to feel connected to others and to improve their situation if he felt he could. 1 week into the COVID lockdown in 2020, when most people hunkered down, David's office was closed like many of our places of business. And so naturally, David showed up to volunteer 1 week into the pandemic at a food bank in the Bronx. He didn't just show up, but he used his brilliance, as everyone has spoken about, to make suggestions on how things could be even more effective. And he could make those suggestions because he established a real and meaningful connection with those who worked with him, as you've heard today. Including in that time, with members of the National Guard who were called in to help. He was present with people around him in the moment, with them where they are, unafraid to make a new connection or to deepen existing ones. This is why he was such an incredible friend to so many, as you see today, and standing room only in the back and the people outside. He helped people work through personal challenges, business challenges, and everything in between. David was amazing with children. His family reflected, he was present with them on their level, being in the moment. He's the guy on the floor with the kids, playing with them, putting on whatever costumes they're making beads, and then wearing them. Because I'm with a child right now, and I want to connect to them. I want this to be a meaningful moment for them. It's no surprise that his daughter Leora seems to have inherited this quality from him, as even I experienced a few days ago, just how we connected over an orange, Paw Patrol, and her sea glass collection. 45 minutes later, we were best friends. Not surprised at all, based on who her father is. As a loving and devoted husband, Jessica remarked, and this is true, every relationship, conflicts arise. That is a normal course of a healthy relationship, but David took it to another level. He wasn't just there for you. He would hear out whatever the issue was. He would take it in, and he would do something about it. Many of us take in things, but we're not always sure how to execute. To show the other person, no, this means something to me. And that only deepens his connection with Jessica and all those whom he touched in that kind of fashion. He made actual, impactful changes in people's lives. As Bunny and VJ reflected the other night, this was who David was from a very young age. Whether in nursery school or elementary school, he was forming special connections with peers and teachers. He formed a very special bond with his rabbi from his childhood, Rabbi Jacob Rubenstein of blessed memory. This was who he was throughout his life, making and nurturing relationships to make a positive impact on others by helping, supporting, and simply being present with them. That is such a unique quality. To have all of the wisdom that he had, to be there with you, to understand you, and to make you feel loved, even if he was undoubtedly the smartest guy in the room. He never made you feel that way. God taught us on the final night before the Exodus from Egypt to make sure that as the Jewish people journeyed into nationhood, the success of that nation depends on forming connections with others to positively impact each other. David lived by this virtue and this value. David is truly an inspiration to all, those who knew him well and those who didn't. When I hear how his family and his friends speak about him, as you've heard a little today, I know the family has heard from so many, numerous people who all felt like he was their best friend. You realize this is an exceptional person who has taught all of us to not be afraid to connect with others. It is scary sometimes. I don't want to make a connection. It doesn't matter. Someone else will do it. Does it really make a difference? Look how many lives we can touch if we follow David's example. Look at how we can live a life that makes a meaningful and lasting impact. Roll up our sleeves and be there for our parents, our spouse, our children, and for our community, and for the world around us. He did that. He did that. And he did that without judgment of others. But as you've heard today, with plenty of humor, lots of kindness, and abundant generosity. May his memory continue to inspire us all as we go forward, and may his memory endure as a blessing in all of our hearts. As it is Pesach, we do not recite the Kel Malei Rachamim, but we substitute a different tefillah, Adon Olamim. So I ask everyone to please rise. Adon Olamim Ezachor et Nishmat David Zov Benyamin Yaakov HaKohen Shehalach Leolamo Ba'avur Shekol Mishpachto Notin L'Tzedakah L'Zikron Nishmato Ana Av HaRachamim VeHaSelichot Tehi Nafsho Tzura B'Tzur HaChayim Utehi Menuchato Kavod V'nomar Amen. The burial will take place at Sharon Gardens in Valhalla Shiva will be observed at the Douek residence, 14 Hillview Drive, Scarsdale, New York, beginning Thursday night at 8:45 following the conclusion of the Passover holiday. For the Shiva times and the minyan schedule, please consult the email that was sent out from the Young Israel of Scarsdale. I ask everyone please allow the family to exit first.
Time's a leader, is it time to die? Time's a race, how the walk by. Is there anybody out there who's paying its best sign? Time to speak on the conversation. Time for peace, is it time for violence? Is there anybody out there who's paying its best sign?
Team
They
DVD.
were trying to push me. It was like, they wouldn't. And then finally it kicked on. And then I got it home, shut it off, went out an hour later.
Anybody could show up. Great little place to stay at.
Cemetery. We're leaving now for the cemetery. Yes, sir.
Say that. Hey, friend. How are you? Good to see you.
Nice to see you again.
don't know if I should.
Carrying it, wheeling it,
Oops, sorry. Go ahead.
Sinaso v'sochera amito, lo tirami pachad laila, michetza uf yomam, midever va'ofel yahaloch, miketev yashud saharayin, yipol mitzidcha elef, urivava biminecha, elecha lo yigash. Rak be'enecha tabid v'shulumat rishayim tireh, ki ata Adonai machsi, elyon samta ve'onecha, lo ti'uneh elecha ra'ah v'nega lo yikrav ve'alecha, Ki melacha v'tzavelach lishmorcha b'chol derachecha. You who shall dwell in the shelter of the Most High, abiding in the shadow of the Almighty, I say of the Lord, my refuge and my strength, my stronghold, my God in whom I trust, that God will deliver you from the ensnaring net of destructive plague. With God's pinion will shelter you, and under God's wings shall you find refuge. Faith in God shall be your shield and protector. Fear not the terror of night, the arrow that flies by day, the plague that stalks in the darkness, the destruction that ravages at noon. Though 1,000 may fall at your left side and 10,000 at your right, it shall not reach you. Look but clearly, and you shall see the retribution against the wicked, because you said, you, Lord, are my trust. You set the Most High as your dwelling. No harm shall befall you, nor does no disease come into your tent, for God will give you God's angels charge concerning you, to guard you in all your ways. I'd like to ask Rabbi Daniel Vinik, one of David's friends, to recite Psalm 23, Mizmor LeDavid.
Mizmor LeDavid. Adonai Elohim lo echsad. Shalom Teshem Yavitzeinu. Amen menuchot v'na'aleini. Nashi yishoveh. V'cheini b'madrei tzedek. L'man shemo. Gam ki elech b'gei tzalmolet. Lo ira ra
כי אתה עמדי, שבטך ומשענתך המה מנחמוני. הרוך לפני שולחן נגד צרה, שהשענת בשמן ראשי כוסי לוויה. אך טוב וחסד ידפוני כל ימי חיי, ושבתי בבית אדוני לאורך ימים.
We're now going to lower the body. David's neshama, his soul, is eternal and will be felt by all those who touched him forever. We give final honor to his body by returning the body from where it came. As we do the mitzvah of burial, we do this mitzvah, this commandment, with understandable reluctance, as it's painful. Our tradition is that when we shovel the first few shovels of dirt, we do it with the back of the shovel, and then we place it into the grave. In addition, we also do not pass the shovel directly to the next person, but place it back in the dirt for the next person to pick up. Again, doing this signifies that we do this with unease. We are doing a mitzvah, and we must do it. I ask and invite family first to do this mitzvah, and then all others afterwards are welcome to do so as well.
We can continue filling in. Our goal is to fill the entire grave in, so we can continue filling in, guys. We're good. Fiora, I got a job for you. Okay, come with me. Okay, come stay with me. Okay, come here, hold my hand. Okay, yes? So we're gonna take a right.
Can you show her what it is? That it has
It has Andy's name on it.
Yeah.
So we know where it is.
Yeah, tell him.
You ready? Push it in.
Did you see Ben?
Keep pushing. Keep pushing. Keep pushing. There we go. Come stay in my mom, okay?
Benny, can you see?
Got it. I'm David's friend too.
We'll have an opportunity to offer them words of Valhalla, words of comfort. This very
Adam David Shamrani El Kifasiba. Amart Adonai Adonai Ata Tovati Bal Alecha Likadoshim Asher Ba'aretz Hema V'adirei Kol Chefti Yirbu Atzvotam Acher Maharu Bal Asich Yiskei Her Midam Bal Esar Shlotam Al Sfatay Adonai Menat Chelki Bechosi Ata Tomich Gorali Chavalim Nafluli Bani'imim Af Nachalat Shafra Alai Avarech Et Adonai Asher Atzani Af Lelot Yisruni Filyotai Shiviti Adonai V'negdi Tamid Ki bimini Bal Emot Lachei Samach Livi V'yagel Kivodi Af B'sari Yishkol Maveta Lo Ta'azov Nafshi Lishol Lo T'tein Chasidcha Lirot Shachat Todi'eni Orech Chaim Sovas Machot Et Panecha Imod B'micha Netzach. Guard me, God, for in you I have taken refuge. You have said to the Lord, you are my Lord, I have no good beyond you. As for the holy ones who are in the earth, and the mighty in whom all my desire. Their sorrows will multiply those that run to other gods, their blood libations will I not pour out, nor take their names upon my lips. The Lord is my allotted portion and my share. You sustain my fate, portions have fallen to me in pleasant places. Lovely indeed is my estate. I will bless the Lord who has given me counsel. My conscience admonishes me at night. I have set the Lord before me always. Because God is at my right hand, I shall not falter. Therefore my heart rejoices and my entire being exalts. Also my body will rest secure. For you will not abandon me to the grave, nor will you let your devout ones see a destruction. You will make known to me the path of life. In your presence is fullness of joy. There is delight at your right hand for eternity. We continue now with Kaddish.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה, ויאמר יברך ירצה וימליך מלכותה, בחייכון וביומכון ובחייך בית ישראל, בעדנה בזמן קריב במרומם. יתברך וישתבח ויתפעל ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי קודשה ברכו לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה דם ירן בעלמה וברעמים יהי שלום הרבה מן שמיה וחיים עלינו ויעצו ישראל במרועמים אמן עושה שלום במרומיו הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל במרועמים
Amen. Our focus at the moment for us here is to offer comfort to the family, to be there for David's family. And we signify that at this time by forming two rows. We'll do it down this way.
I can have all friends step this way, please.
And the mourners will then walk through the two rows in just a moment. We'll offer them words of comfort.
Thank you notes when they came up from the house. Certificate school sent to you. Mr. Douek, paperwork, the book that was signed. Thank you notes when they came up from the house. Certificate school sent to you.
Hey, where are you going?
I think they told us to walk this. They told us to walk this. But I don't know how far.
Why don't you go between all the motorcycles? Like in between?
Okay.
Let's wait for Mama. Where's Mommy?
I'm sleepy.
Yeah, I bet. It's been a very long day. Not even that late. Should we let these cars go? Let's go over here, guys.
But someone told us to walk.
No, I know, but we just don't want you too close to the cars.
That was me.
Yeah, you did exactly the right thing. Good job. We can wait right here. You want to? Wait for your mom.
Yeah.
It's a bad omen, guys. My son's going to become a biker now. I've taken about 15, just like...
That's not enough, though.
Thank you, guys. That was beautiful on the highway.
Thank you.
You know, it's out of bikes, a